Good morning, welcome to Greenwood Bonsai Studio. We're going to do a little video for you today on trimming and styling Chinese Elm bonsai. And Chinese Elm are the most popular bonsai for bonsai cultivation and growth in the UK. We import many of them from China over the course of a year, and it's a beginner's tree, a very versatile tree, very tolerant tree. So it's a tree we always recommend for people to starting off. But because they're very popular, there's a lot written about them. And some of the information is correct and some of the information is not correct. So we're going to just talk you through how to look after your Chinese elm, how to trim it, but also in this video I've got some different elms I wanted to show you, different shapes, and we're going to work on one of those. Now, traditionally in the UK, if you're out and about at a garden centre or bonsai nursery, this is a young Chinese elm. It's probably a 5 or 6 year old tree, and it's had some shape already put into it. This is probably the best view of the tree, the best front, because then we've got this branch here to give us the depth and perspective to the rear of the tree. And they're in little ceramic bonsai pots, and these are very popular because you could buy a tree like this off us here, and in the UK we tend to keep these. Our own preferable option is to put these outside from about middle of May through till middle of October. Now, I do have customers that have these and they grow them inside year round with no issue whatsoever, despite what you might read on the internet. So if you live in a flat and you want an indoor tree, you can get a Chinese elm like this, keep it inside, and I've got customers been doing that for decades with no issue at all. I've also got customers that will buy this little tree off me, they'll pop it out in the summer from May till October, then they'll bring it into the house for winter, keep it a bit warmer. And if you keep it a bit warmer, it will keep its leaves all through the winter and it will stay green and growing. And that's what we tend to do. We lift these into a greenhouse in autumn, and then the month later we start to introduce heat into the greenhouse. We heat them to the greenhouse to about 18. On a cold night it might get down to 8 on a single glazed greenhouse that isn't airtight. But it will be warm enough for it to maintain its leaf through winter and all year round. Having said that, obviously a leaf doesn't live forever, so you will, on these Chinese elms, as they're growing, you will get a few old leaves just naturally going yellow and dropping. And if it's doing a small percentage, 10-20% of leaf drop in the winter is a perfectly normal thing. Excessive leaf drop on a Chinese elm tends to be through lack of water or lack of light. So a little beginner's one like this, and then this one you can see it's just a little bit older, a larger pot, slightly thicker trunk, and a bit more developed on the branches. So let me put this little one down, leave that medium one there. And then this next size up here, this is slightly older, next size up bonsai pot, and these have been pruned. This one here, we've just lifted it out of the greenhouse and it's ready for pruning. So a couple of things I wanted to show you in this video. I wanted to show you a pruning on a Chinese elm like this. So if you buy one at a garden centre, it's a little bit shaggy and it wants pruning, I'm going to show you how to achieve a better shape. But quite interestingly, we've also got this tree I want to work on and show you today. So these are a new tree to us here at Greenwood Bonsai, and whereas these imported trees from China have got this S shape, often called S shape Chinese elms, these new ones are more traditional shape, a straighter trunk without too many contrived twists. Now, you might have a preference for which of these you prefer. Sometimes you find beginners, they prefer this because to them it looks more like a bonsai, which is often what they're trying to, what they want to purchase. They like this because it's twisty and it's interesting. But you also have people that prefer this look because it looks more like a natural tree. If you were walking through the countryside in England, this is more like a stereotypical, natural looking elm tree. So some people, I prefer this because it looks like trees I see in nature. But some people think this isn't very interesting because the trunk's kind of straight. Myself, I favour this sort of tree because it looks more natural. But we are going to do some enhancement on this tree at the same time. So before we do that, and we can see which you prefer at the end of the video, I'm just going to give this a little trim. So this growth on this tree, it's put this growth out just within the course of a few weeks. So I'm just going to start trimming back some of these longer sections of growth, and we've probably trimmed these 5 or 6 times in the growing season. If you live in a warmer climate, you're probably trimming them much more frequently than we do here. And this is why elms are so popular, because if you've got a Chinese elm bonsai tree, it's not sitting there not doing anything. You know, it's growing, and the more it grows, the more you have to trim it. And as a beginner, that's good, because the more trimming you do, the more you get used to it, the more comfortable you'll get in trimming it. And even so much that if you trim it too much and you think you've ruined it a little bit, you know, 4 or 5 weeks later, you know, it grows back and it'll be a better shape with more growth. So even if you're a bit heavy-handed on it and you think, oh, I've given that a bit too much of a scalping, fast forward a few weeks and it's sort of grown back and it's ready for another prune. So some of this growth that's hanging down too much, I'm just trimming off. Some of this longer growth on these foliage pads with a little bit of pruning like that. There's a little bit of wire on it here, just on the trunk where these branches have been pulled down. And if you get a tree that's got some wire on it, that can just be removed. I'll just turn it around there to face the front with it trimmed and tidied up. You can see it a bit more sensible, and just with a bit of light pruning, just a minute or so. So I'll pop that down to the side, and let's get on to having a look at this. Now, if you're in the UK and you're watching this video, there's a batch of these trees have just gone on the website. So if you're interested, have a look at the Chinese Elm category if you want to add one of these to your collection. There are currently just a select few on the website for sale, and also some more of them here at the nursery. This is as it's been imported to us, yeah, in this pot. It's a little bit shaky in the pot, a little bit waggly in transportation, and you can see it just sort of lifting out a little bit. Not a problem, but it's worth addressing. So what we'll do, we'll just get a little piece of wire before we start working on the tree, just to stabilise it. So quite easily, look, I'll do it from around here so you can see. We don't even have to take the tree out of the pot. Using a slightly thicker wire than usual, like a 2.5mm, so it's a bit more rigid, and then we can just poke it up through the soil. Make sure that's nice and tight across the bottom like that, and then we'll just bring this across this side of the tree here, like that. And we'll just pull that wire tight and just twist it to take up the slack, get rid of some of that little bit of moss there. So like that, nice and tight. Trim off that excess wire and push that down into the soil. So you don't need to go round the base of the tree or anything like that. So now look, that's very, very secure in that pot. So that's the first thing we need to do with this tree. So you'll notice it's quite a heavy trunk, it's quite a nice tree. It's got a little bit of moss on the bottom. Let's just take that off, because it will start to rot the bark if there's too much. And the tools for this job we favour are a nylon brush or a brass brush. These nylon brushes are okay, they do the job. Look, if you need a little bit more heavy duty, you can use a brass one, but just be a bit more timid with it, because you don't want to damage the bark. And there's also a stainless steel brush in this set, but that is a bit more aggressive, so that'll be too much for this job. So either one of those nylon ones or a brass brush like this, just to get rid of that moss at the base. So here there's a bit of a stub there at the base. Now some of you might keep it because you like the look of it. I don't find it particularly attractive, so we'll go in with a pair of concave pruners like this, and we'll just neaten that up. It cuts a little bit pithy, these Chinese elms, so on the sharp concave pruner you should get a decent cut like that. And we'll neaten that up in a little while. Can you see here there's also a stub here? on the lower part of the tree that's got this branch coming off it. I don't really like this stub, don't really like this branch. So it's the same with those, in with a concave pruner and just remove it and neaten it up against the trunk like so. Okay, then there's a tiny little one here that can be trimmed off, and here a little bit of moss off there. So a little bit off this bit with a smaller concave pruner just to neaten it up. So those cuts there, we're going to put some wound sealant on those, so don't worry about them for now. We will put some wound sealant on them. So this tree, as it's been grown, quite heavy trunk, in a sort of broom style, natural looking shape, but I want to sort of give it a bit of definition without going too crazy with it. So there's a couple of little bits that we could probably take off it. Let's have a little look. So we've got quite a decent branch here, another one here at the front of the tree. These could be pulled down a little bit with some wire. Round here, this branch, this is to the back of the tree, because the best view of the tree is in here towards you. Yeah, we will put some stuff on here, don't worry about that. But if you look from the side, you've got this, which is quite a nice sort of horizontal back branch. But if I continue to turn it around, can you see this form here? Well, that's a good branch, and this one, quite thick, comes up through the tree. That one is going to be a bit problematic, so I'm going to trim that one off like so. It's got this bit attached to it, which we don't really need, so that can come out from the tree. It's not made a lot of difference to the actual shape of the tree, but it's got rid of that structure which is lacking. This one's too thin here as well. So let's get a pair of scissors and let's start on this back branch. So this is going to be pulled down like this. So these bits that are growing upwards too much and downwards too much, let's see if we can just tidy those up like that. And then follow our way up the tree. Some of this leggy growth we can prune back a little bit. As we get into the top, a little bit of crossing branches, some of this long shoots we can trim back, trying to taper the tree in a little bit. So growth going down from one foliage pad to another. You can see here on this branch, this is growing quite strongly upwards. It's been pruned here. Wants to come back a little bit more, and this section like this. So we can do that, and then this is still coming down too much. This branch here, this is cutting across and down. This is growing up too much. So with a little bit of pruning in here, taking some of these longer shoots back, heavy growth crossing over structure. So I'm now looking at the front of the tree here. Let me come around here. You might be able to see a bit clearer. So if we keep the front towards you and you just have a look over my shoulder, you'll see what I'm looking at. So this can come back into here. This is growing up a bit too much. This is a bit too vigorous. Let's just try to see if we can taper the top in a little bit. This piece here is growing up through. I'll remove that. I mean, as far as pruning these back, it's up to you how far you want to go. Some of these that we put out on the website, I won't trim them this much. I'll give them a little bit of a prune, because as to how much you want these sort of, the refinement of these, the definition is sometimes down to the individual owner. So we'll do some of the work, and then if you get one and you want to prune it back more, then obviously you can do that in future. So we've taken this back. As we come down here to the rear of the tree, looking from the side, you can see that what we haven't taken out. So if I shorten this, and here, and then here, this one's growing in a bit much. These are growing out too much. That's growing up too much. And we should start to get a bit more sense. Can you see now I've done this section here, but this bit here isn't done. So there's a heavy shoot in here, it's crossing through. take that out, shorten this back, just to make it more compact and a better shape. Spin it back round to the front. I think this could come back into here. This bit here. That's a bit heavy. And we talked a little bit, didn't we, about early on, we mentioned about perhaps wiring these branches. So we've done quite a lot to this tree already, just by pruning. Let's just pop a little bit of wire on these low branches. We'll show you how to do that. So we only need a bit of sort of 3mm wire, and we'll start it here at the tree just here. We're going to wire this one and this one, so we can start this wire on the back of the tree, bring it over like this, and just wire it along the branch, a couple of turns, and then bring this round like this up and onto the trunk here, onto this branch, and this one's going to come along like this, along the branch, through the branches, being careful not to trap any foliage, move the foliage out of the way, just send your wire along to the tip just here, and I tend to use these wire scissors for the tips of these branches to help me manipulate the wire along. That's just right, finish it just there, trim that end off. Same with this one then, we can go along like this and through like that, right to the ends. Any little bit of wire, just trim any excess off. So that's going to allow me to get this branch now, look, and move it and position it a bit more. Going to be able to bring this one down and into here a little bit like that. And then we've got another couple of branches here. See if we can do a similar thing with those. We can come off this back branch here, and then this wire can come around all the way around the tree through here, and in this case it's going to come up and onto this next branch. So some of you may want to do a little bit of wiring on these to enhance them, and this branch here I just want to bring it down into here. Easily done, look, like this, with a bit of 3mm wire. Just using aluminium wire for ease of use. It's what we tend to use here in the UK, although I do use copper wire for wiring some evergreens and for exhibition work. But for quick, easy work on this sort of tree and for demonstration purposes, and also beginners tend to favour aluminium wire. It's easier to work with. If you're watching this in the US, you'll realise I'm pronouncing aluminium instead of aluminum. It's the same thing. I can work with aluminum wire as well. I did my bonsai apprenticeship in the United States for 4 years or so, and I'm back there again in a couple of weeks. In fact, I'm back there in a week for the National Bonsai Exhibition in Rochester, New York, to do some demonstrations. So if you're watching this from the US, you won't be able to buy one of these trees, but if you go into the National Exhibition next week in Rochester, New York, then I'll be there. I'll hopefully be able to meet some of you and do a couple of demonstrations. Looking forward to getting back over. So with these brought down, look, a little bit of pruning here. This one here we could bring into here, just a little branch that is, so we could probably do that with a bit of 2mm wire. Just going to wire it from this junction here just across like that, just to tuck that into there, and across the other end of the wire we might as well tuck it onto that branch there, bring that one here, this one down here, just to start to enhance it, develop it and give a bit of definition to the tree. Let me go back around the other side, and a few little finishing touches. Let's just get rid of some of the mess around the edge. Some of these roots that are growing up a little bit, we can just give those a bit of a trim. We can top dress this with some akadama Paul, do you want to just get me a scoop of Akadama out of that bucket? Paul's sitting in the background watching, so we'll make him do something. And then a little bit of lac balsam on here. It's really good colour. It blends in quite well. So we don't have to be too worried about those cuts that we made, because once we put some of this on, that'll blend in nicely. And a bit of Akadama on the soil surface. We use this as a compost to plant into, obviously, as many of you do. We also use it as a top dressing because we like the look of it. You can also just use gravel or something like that, but we like the look of the Akadama. Just firm that down, get a nice distribution of that around the tree. Just work that into there, and then a little bit here that I've missed, a little bit here. But we've just done a 5-minute prune and wire on this tree. So if you're in the UK and you fancy getting hold of one of these, they're quite unique. They're a new tree to us. Quite nice, heavy trunk, very natural looking tree. And as I said earlier, you can see it's putting new growth out, but at this time of year, look, just at the beginning of September, end of August, the odd little leaf just starting to go yellow. Just these old ones, that's nothing to worry about. Perfectly natural on a Chinese elm. Keep them well watered. This tree will go into just an unheated greenhouse in the UK at this time of year. And we'll start putting a little bit of heat in there towards the end of October. So I hope you enjoyed something a little bit different, rather than an S-shaped Chinese elm, something maybe a little bit more tree-like, maybe an image that you prefer. Let us know in the comments, leave us a comment. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, and there's lots of content on there at the moment, and look forward to new videos coming featuring the National Exhibition in the United States, and I hope to see some of you there. Thank you very much.